So, have you heard about the fight at Disney? Hello everyone, this is Gene from NYC again, and I'm back with another video. So before I start the video, I would like to welcome a few new subscribers. Their names are Devon Chambers, Zeno Smith, Shiva. I feel so honored to have the Shokan Princess on my channel. And a Biosuke, I don't know how you say it. I apologize, I'm getting it wrong. But welcome to the channel. I would like to thank everyone, whether this is your first time watching or your 100th time watching. Thank you. Thank you all so much for watching, for subscribing. I'm now at 106 subscribers, which I really wasn't expecting, especially since, again, my videos, especially for the first 6 months, were not exactly the most professional looking things in the world. So again, thank you all so much. I hope that you continue to enjoy the content. So, as you no doubt may have figured out from the intro to this video, the content of the video today is going to be the Disneyland fight that happened, I believe, on July 5th. This fight has me feeling some type of way. It has me feeling a lot of type of ways. And before I continue, I don't do this often because I don't usually need to, but I have to put in a language warning of sorts. I will probably go into some profanity and foul language at certain points. I was thinking about it because I generally don't like to use that type of language. Not necessarily because of YouTube or anything like that, it's just that I don't like to swear. I don't like to express myself in that fashion. But I think to be clear about just what I think and feel about this incident, this fight, that I may have to, just be blunt in this about, how do I say it, blunt in how I speak, and not censor myself at all, not even, hiding behind euphemisms. So this is the only time I'm going to bring this up. If profanity offends you, stop here and check out another video of mine. I don't use profanity often, but I think here again I'm giving myself license to so that I can be honest about what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. So, fair warning. This is gonna get nasty, and this is your only warning. So take it to heart. So anyway, I've seen this video from a few other content creators. I saw Mark, what's the name of the channel? The Gospel According to Mark with a C. I saw his take on it. I saw a few other videos and other people's takes on it, but I wanted to see it for myself. And oh God, it's one of those things, believe it or not, although I don't see this to be a laughing matter. The other videos that I saw sort of made light of it in certain ways. To me, and perhaps it's because of the fact that I live in a fairly dangerous city, even still. And I guess just my life experiences. I don't take this lightly. I don't find it funny, but despite that, seeing this, I actually am reminded of a comedy skit. I'm reminded of a comedy skit that Chris Rock did back in the 90s, and if you're familiar with Chris Rock's work, you may know where I'm going with this. So in the 90s, Chris Rock had this skit. He had this skit called Black People versus Niggas. Right, and in this skit, what he did was he pointed out the differences in the behavior, and I want to be clear, especially since I'm using a racial slur in this case, although I'm not using it in a necessarily racial context. but he displayed, or rather he talked about the differences in behavior between a person who happens to be African American. Sorry about the noise, that's my cat playing with something. Of course he decides when I'm recording a video to play with something. Anyway, Chris Rock pointed out in this skit the difference between someone who just happens to be African American and someone who is a nigga. And sadly, in this case, with this video, what we are seeing from the majority of the adults in this that are fighting, I want to be clear, not the ones who are trying to break up the fight. Them, thank you, but the ones who are fighting. Unfortunately, what we're seeing from this, from the people who are fighting, is pure nigga behavior. And I want to be clear. It's about behavior. It is not about race. It is not about the way a person is dressed. It is not about where a person lives. I don't know where these people live. I don't care. It is not about a person's income, right? Because the stereotype of a nigga, right, is basically a poor black person in the ghetto. That's not the case. I live in the projects. I've known plenty of people who I guess sort of maybe in their appearance or where they live or their job or the money that they don't make fit the stereotype, but they be some of the nicest, kindest, well-behaved, right, people, just regular people that you could meet. So a nigga is not somebody who just happens to be, living in the ghetto, right? That's not what makes a person a nigga. What makes a person a nigga is behavior like this, right? No home training, no respect for themselves, no respect for the other people that are around them, and nothing else. Just pure just no home training. And what frustrates me, and a lot of things frustrate me about this, but one of the things that frustrates me about this is that even though it's not right, this type of behavior, right, gets pinned on the entire black community. It's not just pinned on these individual people or even necessarily their family name, but no. It is pinned on to the entire black community. You see, people like these fools make it difficult for someone like myself, who unfortunately, again, lives in the projects, has a modest salary. You see, people who sincerely are racist toward black people take videos like this, and this is their justification for their views, right? They take this, and I'm not going to say that you can't say they're wrong, because they are. But again, they'll take something like this and go, see, this is what black people act like, right? This is how they behave in public. Here's this video, right? This real life video that is proof, right, that black people are, these horrible, savage, people who have no sense of decency. This is the type of thing that from a sincerely racist point of view, someone who is truly a racist, not someone who just happens to disagree with you. But for a person who really is a racist, right, this is the proof that they need. This is the proof that they need that all black people, right, regardless of where they are or what they do, regardless of their own behavior, to an actual racist, this type of behavior is what all black people are like, and what all black people do, regardless of content or context or reason. We're all like this. So thank you, family that got into a public fight at Disney, especially the coward in the red shirt who kept beating up on two women multiple times when they weren't fighting him anymore. Thank you so much for making the rest of us look good. Thank you so much for making it that much harder for the rest of us. Thank you so fucking much. Thanks. Anyway, So there's that, right? It's just an embarrassment, right? For all parties involved, even on me, tangentially, because I'm half African American. It's one of those things where it's like even the dog is ashamed, right? Because again, they make the rest of us look bad, and that's all I can say about that. But the other thing that really gets me, aside from again just the poor display of behavior, is the fact that, how do I put it? I guess because of my life experiences, right? Having been in fights, having been threatened, having been in the city at 9/11, right? I'm all too cognizant and all too aware of the fact that real life violence like this can spring up at any time, right? Not to say that this is at the level of 9/11, but I kind of think of 9/11 in this sense again, not because of the level of devastation or violence, but because this reminds me in a sense of 9/11 because it's a perfectly normal, calm, peaceful day, just like the beginning of September 11th was, until it's not. Until something that you had no way to anticipate happens. Right? This is real life violence. And this is what happens in the real world. You go about your day, you go about your life, and suddenly you find yourself being punched, or you find yourself trying to break up a fight, or you find yourself in worse situations. And what pisses me off is that this is not being covered on mainstream media. This is not being covered by TV stations, to my knowledge. At least no major TV stations. I asked a family member that I live with if they've seen it on TV, and they said no. They were completely surprised when I mentioned that this happened. And if they don't know, not to go too deep into it, but my family member that I look after, that I take care of, is permanently disabled and pretty, for all intents and purposes, bedridden. So they literally, for the most part, just lie in bed all day and most of the night watching TV. So if my family member hasn't heard about this in the news, it hasn't been in the mainstream news. ABC, which is owned by Disney, mind you, is not covering this. Because there's no way that they would have missed it if this was on mainstream TV. The only place I've been hearing about it is, again, on YouTube, through YouTube videos. And I'm not even coming across it from, like, large channels. You would think that, again, a fight breaking out of Disney, sorry, that was my knee cracking, would garner the attention of, like the ABC YouTube channel, or, other channels. Nope, it's just small, YouTube creator channels, like, again, Mark, the Gospel According to Mark with a C, Geeks and Gamers, Mecha Random, the Fandom Menace, basically. Right, smaller, right, YouTube channels, creator channels. That's who's talking about this, not the mainstream media. Not the mainstream media, because the mainstream media cannot tarnish Disney's image, and this certainly tarnishes Disney's image. And that goes on to another point, which is, where the hell were the police? Where the hell was security? And again, maybe it's just because of my own experiences. Maybe there's stuff that happened before or after that we're not seeing. But I found a clip that was nearly 4 minutes long. No authority figure. I mean, the people eventually get there to look like cops, but no sort of authority figure, no security, no police get there for nearly 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I want to repeat that. A fight has broken out at Disney. You have a crazy man in a red shirt beating up women who are not fighting him. That dude, in my opinion, is a coward. Not because he's hitting women necessarily, but because he is hitting women who are not fighting him back. But anyway, You have a crazy man assaulting people, assaulting 2 people at least, and there's no security or police presence at all for 3 minutes. As someone who's thrown punches and taken punches and slaps in life, 3 minutes feels like forever when someone is seriously trying to harm you. Every second counts because so much could happen. People, everybody there, the police, this stupid family, passersby, so many people are lucky that this wasn't, for as bad as it is, so many people are lucky that it was not worse. Because he could have hit anybody, right? He could have easily turned on the men who were trying to calm him down. He could have turned and assaulted them. Interestingly, he didn't. He only beat up on women who were not fighting him back. But this crazy man could have beat up on them, right? I have to give credit to the passersby, right? They weren't terribly hands-on, but there were a few passersby who did try to get this guy off of them, and I gotta give them credit because, you know, people want to criticize bystander syndrome and all that, and I understand, but when you intervene in something like this, you are taking a risk. You are putting yourself, and by extension, potentially your own family, right? Because if you're the breadwinner in your home, right, you get hurt because you were trying to be a good Samaritan and break up a fight, guess what happens? You're out of work, you have medical bills to pay, right? All of a sudden, your life is taking a downturn just because you were trying to help. So, to those men, and from what I can see, it was only men. There was only one time that I saw a woman get involved, and it was toward the end, and she picked up a little child and got the kid out the way because, again, crazy man is just swinging at anybody who's a woman, apparently, even when they aren't fighting him. So kudos to her. But every other person that I saw who actually tried to get involved and break up the fight was a man. So thank you to those men. They were trying to be hands-off, and I can't necessarily blame them, right? But thank you to those men for at least attempting, because they were taking a risk themselves. They were putting their own health and their own, in a sense, families, again, depending on what their family situation is, on the line. They were taking a big risk. So thank you to those men, and especially thank you to the group of men who finally actually physically restrained the guy and actually brought him down. One dude got like a rear naked choke on him. So thank you to those men in particular. But back to my point. At any moment within that 3.5 minutes before any sort of security arrives, that guy, or the other people, right? Because it wasn't just him. He's sadly kind of like the star in this situation because he won't stop hitting people. But there's a point where 2 of the girls get into it, right? It's just chaos all around. And at any point, right, someone could have, been punched too hard or slapped too hard, right? You get hit in the temple, right? And if then you have a brain aneurysm or brain damage, someone, get... One woman fell. If I remember correctly, the biggest girl there, I'll just say, because they're all kind of heavy-set, but the biggest heavy-set woman who was in the tank top and the jeans, right, she gets knocked over. She falls over at a certain point. 2 women fall. One woman in a maxi dress falls over. And then the big girl in the t-shirt and jeans, she gets knocked over. Actually, she gets pulled to the ground by the crazy guy in the shirt, right? Her head could have hit the pavement, right? He was slapping her and raining blows down on her. And, again, right, a big strong dude slapping the taste out of your mouth, punching you, right, and you can't cover up. You're trying to defend yourself, right? So many things could have gone wrong. So many injuries. I haven't heard about any serious injuries yet, thank goodness, but so much could have gone wrong, right? Or for the second girl that didn't even, at least the first girl did punch him in the beginning, but the second girl that he beat up in the gold shirt and the longer jean shorts, she never put a hand on him. and he just grabs her by her hair and just starts punching her, pulls her to the ground, starts raining blows. This dude was insane. This dude is insane. Not actually man enough to actually fight the guys who are trying to get him away, or later on actually physically restrain him. But he has no issue, again, hitting people who are not fighting him back. Real brave guy, right? He's screaming, I'm ready to go to prison. I'll go to jail tonight. Somebody should have fucking called the cops on him and put his ass in jail for the night. Let the prisoners do as they will. But anyway, so I'm just glad that despite of how terrible it is, there were no major injuries, but still, 3 minutes. 3 minutes of real world, real life violence where anything could have happened. It could have spilled out and started involving other people. A little kid almost got hurt. 2 of these women had babies there, right? Someone could have crashed into the carriages. There are so many what ifs that thank goodness didn't come to pass, but still. You have to think about the worst case scenario. 3 minutes of pandemonium, of violence, where so many more people could have gotten hurt. And there's no security, and there's no police for 3.5 minutes in a public space. I don't know which Disneyland this was at. I'm assuming someplace in Florida, but yeah, no. We don't play that in New York City. I've been to Central Park. It's teeming with police officers. The only way you'll get hurt in Central Park is if you are jogging at like 6 in the morning there. But otherwise, if you're there during the day, it is teeming with police and police horses. God, those things stink. I've been over there. Ugh. But anyway, teeming with police. I've been to Madison Square Garden. I've been to the Barclays Center. Teeming with police. Okay, I work in a college. We have public safety officers. For the sake of argument, we'll just call them campus cops, right? All over the place, on every floor. There are individual stations, but they also walk the floors. And I've seen it. When there's a situation, it doesn't matter whether it's someone having a medical emergency, because we do have a nurses station, fortunately. But it doesn't matter whether it's a medical emergency or, again, someone getting into a fight. At times they have broken up fights. Or they come to open your classroom door because you forgot your keys. Right? They are there and they are on top of it. Because they don't play that. You don't have time to waste when there's an emergency going on. And this was certainly an emergency. This to me was a public health and public safety concern. This is a public fight, right? Little kids are here. Other people are here who don't want or need to be exposed to and possibly involved in this violence. This never should have happened. It should not have taken 3 men to wrestle the crazy guy down to the ground and one of them halfway choke him out just to get him to stop. None of this should have happened. Sometimes you can't stop stuff from happening, but in my opinion, there should have been a much better response time. I'm just glad that again, it wasn't more serious. All I can think about, and again, maybe it's just me being a pessimist, but all I can think about is that it could have been so much worse, and thank goodness that it wasn't. Now to the next one, which is the fact that, from what I'm hearing, the family is not pressing charges, because of course they're not. Of course they're not. I've seen this type of thing too many times in my life. Right? Too many times in my life. Where, again, people get into a fight, right? They hurt each other, black eye, busted lip, call the police get there, and then it's, oh, there's nothing wrong, officer. There's nothing wrong. Everybody suddenly wants to take a code of silence and do the whole hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil thing after they call the police. You wonder why that there is so much crime in the ghettos. A big part of it is that type of behavior, not being willing to speak up and to report something, especially after you're the one who called the cops. Now, I know that I'm sort of being reductive in that. I understand that there's a lot of nuance that I'm leaving out, but the reason I leave it out is because in the end, this type of, I'm not gonna, snitch, I'm not gonna talk to the cops, is what leads to more violence, right? It's what leads to kids growing up in violent homes, because nobody wants to report the offender. Nobody wants to report the abuser. And believe me, Red Shirt is most assuredly an abuser. I don't believe for a second that this was just people who were having a bad day, right, and their tempers flared over. That's not what happened here. This guy, from what I can tell, again, is abusive. Not just losing his temper and just, going at it with the people who are pissing him off. He's an abuser. Because again, those women were not fighting back. It's not a case of mutual combat. If it were mutual combat, I would still be upset, but at least I could understand a little more. Because then there would be activity on both sides, right, where they're trying to hurt each other. I've been in mutual combat situations. This ain't it. This is not it. This man is abusive. He abuses people who do not and who cannot fight him back. Because every time a dude stepped in, he would not get in their face, he wouldn't raise a fist, he wouldn't attack. The moment it's defenseless women who aren't even looking in his direction, then he's grabbing hair, knocking them over, throwing them to the ground. That man is an abuser, and that man is a coward. And as much as I hate to say it, the family of this man, because apparently they're all related to each other, is enabling his behavior by not sending his dumb, abusive ass to jail. Talking about, I'm ready to go to jail. Send him to jail. Make his dreams come true. See how they treat him in prison when they find out that he's in jail for beating up 2 women who were not fighting him back at Disneyland. See what happens to him then. But that's not going to happen because the family's going to cover for him because they are not cooperating. And my last point is that you have useless people. You have useless pundits, celebrities, politicians, right, who when it comes to violence, right, they always want to talk about movies and music and media and video games. They always want to distract you by blaming the entertainment. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying a person shouldn't have an opinion about the content that's on TV or certainly that their young children are consuming. But you want to know how to create a violent child? You want to know how to create a violent offender when they're an adult? Stuff like this. Mortal Kombat does not make violent offenders. Okay? Violent music, violent video games, CSGO, violent TV does not produce violent people. It does not suddenly make the people who are watching it want to go crazy and hurt other people. Right? It is stuff like this. It is when people are exposed to real life, real world violence. It's when little kids, because there's this old saying, right, that the child is the father of the man. Meaning that the things that you see and that you experience as a kid mold you into the adult you become. And although I don't 100% agree with that phrase, I think there's a lot of truth to it, that the child does give birth, in a sense, to the adult that you become, right? You don't necessarily erase all those childhood experiences, right? Think of all the people who have been bullied. You don't forget that. And this type of situation, and God knows the home situation that these kids are going through, I hope that they're taken out of the home and give them to other family members, put them in a foster care until they can find a better home in something. Because I don't believe for a second, again, I don't believe for a second that this is a one shot type of situation where it's just, somebody who's normal just loses their cool and acts poorly. I believe, sadly, that this is something that probably happens at home, right? Which means that these little kids are growing up exposed to this, if not victims of it themselves, either directly or indirectly. And this is how you breed criminals. This is how you breed criminals. When you have little kids growing up in violent homes, right, where there's no stability, where they see, dad attack mom, and they learn from that, oh, it's okay for a man to hit a woman. Or they see mom hit dad, and then they learn, oh, okay, it's okay for a woman to hit a man unprovoked. Or they see, dad abuse mom and threaten her, and she stays out of fear, and they learn, oh, okay, the way you deal with this situation is to tolerate the abuse. And plus, kids when they're very young internalize everything, even when they're not so young. I think it's just human nature to just internalize stuff. I think that for whatever reason we don't want to blame others, so the first person we will blame is ourselves, even if it consciously doesn't make sense. But anyway, kids especially internalize things, right? So so there's always a possibility they'll think this is my fault, right? I don't know how old some of the kids are. Some of them are little babies. They're in strollers, but there are a few older kids there. You don't know what these kids are going to think. Maybe if I hadn't have asked to come to Disneyland, this wouldn't have happened. Maybe if I hadn't have made Daddy angry last night, this wouldn't have happened. Right? So many what ifs that the kid doesn't need to ask because it isn't their fault. There is no. I cannot think, and I have yet to hear of anything that could have been said that could warrant this man just going around hitting people who are not fighting him back. So I hope these kids are put into a better situation as quickly as possible. But as I was saying, this is what breeds criminals. The lack of stability, the lack of positive male and female figures in their homes, growing up in violent neighborhoods, right, being bullied and abused and beat up in school. This is what causes violent kids. This is what causes school shooters. This is what causes your future criminals. This type of stuff. Real life violence in unstable and broken homes. Not a video game with a rumble pack. Not a video game where everybody has supernatural powers. So when media and politicians and whatnot want to blame, again, Mortal Kombat or whatever, but they don't. Sorry about that, everybody. There was a bit of an interruption. I was called to do a few things. This is what happens when you live with somebody who needs constant attention. But anyway, as I was saying, this type of situation that I'm afraid that these children are going through, living in what I say is most likely, that I believe to be, is most likely a violent, unstable home, is what creates the future school shooters and criminals, not the media. And military people, not military, I don't know what I'm talking about there, sorry, politicians and whatnot, right, they would rather debate about video games, right, and cast the blame where it doesn't belong and basically distract us all, instead of actually trying to address the real issue, which is, how do you go back, if possible, to healthy, stable families? How do we reduce, this type of dynamic where little kids are growing up witnessing this type of behavior day in and day out from the people who are supposed to be molding them into men and into women? They don't have an answer for that. So instead of admitting, hey, we don't know how to solve, family problems, they decide to just, again, blame the video game, blame the TV show, blame the music, blame the comics, instead of actually looking at home and going, what do we do about this? How do we repair the family? And that's it. Those are pretty much my thoughts on it. So if you've held out and listened to this video up until now, thank you so much. Again, I don't like to use profanity, but I felt it was appropriate in this case. If you offended, too bad, I warned you. But anyway, that's the vid. Please let me know what you think in the comments. And I'll see you in the next one, which should hopefully be a lot more positive. Bye-bye now.